Hi everybody, I'm Bill Brennan, welcoming you to another edition of Honolulu on the Move, the show that brings you the latest news and information about the Honolulu Rail Transit Project. You know, there's a person on our HART staff who has the title of Director of Planning and Right-of-Way. She's our special guest today, and she is Elizabeth Scanlon. Liz, thanks so much for being with us today.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Tell us a little bit about yourself. Let the viewers get to know you, your background, and what brought you to HART.
Sure. I have about 15 years of transit experience. I started in Denver, where I grew up. I'm a University of Colorado graduate, so I started at the Regional Transportation District and started in community outreach, actually, and then I got into the planning world.
It's a great place to start.
It is fabulous, yes. And eventually I ended up in Salt Lake City, Utah, where we did a major rail transit expansion program. So I spent about 10 years in Utah doing environmental planning, station design, all manner of different things. We had a very lean and mean team there, so I got to do a lot of different things. And opportunity presented itself to come here to Honolulu to work on this project, and I jumped at the chance. So my husband and I came over about 4.5 years ago. And now I find myself in the director seat with the planning and right-of-way group,
And what does that entail? What is planning and right-of-way? You know, when I hear right-of-way, it's like two people come to a four-way stop and it's like, who has the right-of-way? But
right.
In our business, it takes on a little different.
A little different, yeah. So the departments are a little bit uncanny to be put together, but the idea was to put all the groups that kind of lead the way for construction together so that we don't have any delay to the guys out in the field doing the work. And so that might mean obtaining permits. My group was involved in the environmental impact statement, and then of course actually acquiring right-of-way for the program, relocating businesses and what have you. So those departments are kind of, I think of it like storming the beaches at Normandy, clear the way for the troops to come in and get the job done. So we, all of our focus is trying to make sure nothing hiccups our construction guys.
And what kind of challenges does your department and various divisions run into? I'm sure there are many.
Oh, it's smooth sailing all the time. Yeah, lots of partnerships, I guess, is kind of what always comes to mind for me in that department. And it's very important that we are constantly balancing sort of competing needs. We've got to stay on schedule, we've got to meet the program's needs, but we have to also be sort of respectful and giving to any of our kind of what we think of clients in terms of property owners and stakeholders, as we deal a lot with third parties, Department of Health, Aloha Stadium, the Navy, and different folks who we need something from them, but we have to sort of respect they have their own processes and internal bureaucracies and what have you to get approvals through the system. So it's challenging. It's a bit time consuming, but you know, I think it's just a matter of good communication and being proactive with these folks so they understand what's happening and why we're doing it and how we're going to do it, and keep them from feeling any anxiety about where we're going to end up at the end of the day.
How about the acquisition of property? I know that's a big deal in a lot of people's minds. How much property, private property, does HART have to acquire to make our project run right and be built correctly? And how, if you could give folks a better understanding of how that process actually works.
Right, yeah, we have quite a bit of property when you think about the numbers. I think there's something like 232 roughly properties that we actually impact and need for the construction of the guideway and the stations.
But not all of those are like entire properties.
That's right. Yeah. There's a very small number of full acquisitions, and those are generally for our stations. Most of it is smaller partial acquisitions, particularly in the city center area where it's a lot of just roadway strip takes so we can widen the roads and what have you. And it sort of starts with a general information letter. We let folks know, hey, we're coming, we're going to need some property from you. And again, it's very much dialogue. There's the Uniform Act, the Federal Uniform Act that we must follow. Federal Transit Administration's involved with kind of oversight and approvals of different things. So we follow a very regulated process. And we go through, we communicate with property owner, identify the take area with our design team, so we collaborate a lot internally. And then we do an appraisal of that property and we make an offer, and then we go into negotiations. In between all of that, we've tried to sort of obtain site access, which is asking the property owners, would you let us get on to do construction work in advance of actually completing the full acquisition? That might come in the form of a right of entry or some mechanism like that. And that's actually been a very successful endeavor. We have about, we just reported to the board of directors, 92% of the site access obtained for the program, which means we can go in and we can build while we do the paperwork, so to speak, on the back end of that.
Right.
Yep.
Tell me about the Uniform Act. I think that's something that a lot of people are not familiar with at all, but it does kind of guide us as to how we treat private property owners when we look to acquire that property.
Right,
Yes.
right. And I have to admit, I'm not an expert in the Uniform Act, but it generally protects private property owners from governmental entities coming in and just arbitrarily taking property without going through a set process. And it really boils down to fair and reasonableness, that we make a fair market value driven offer, that we're not just going in and saying, hey, I'll give you $1 for your property. We have to go through a formal appraisal with accredited appraisers. We have actually kind of for our project with federal funds, Federal Transit comes in and takes a look at all of our appraisals over certain dollar figures. And then, we start a fair and open negotiation with the property owner. There's nothing, we try to be as honest with them as we can be. And so it's, the Uniform Act just is the federal regulation that dictates kind of the rules that we must play by in order to obtain the properties.
Is contained in there the notion of relocation and helping people find other place if we are in fact going to acquire their property?
Yes, that's right. And there's a number of properties on the project that we've had to relocate. I think that's been a fairly successful endeavor, and it can be very painful if you can imagine.
Yes.
Hey, I need your property and you have to move. That can be very traumatic for folks. But the Uniform Act does have very stringent rules about how we have to execute that work. And we actually on staff have 2 relocation agents from Hart who would work with the property owners, and they go and they actually help them look for properties that are of comparable value, size, what have you, and we work with them to help them through the relocation process. And generally, it allows us to pay for those costs, and there's rules about how that will happen. And so our relocation agents really walk everybody through step by step how that process is to go, and make sure everything stays within the bounds. And we want to make sure that they're treated fairly and that we get our requirements met as well.
Right. And so far things in that regard are going pretty well for us. So, I mean, it seems that the clients or the people, the private property owners that we are working with and Hart are coming to good agreements on the acquisition of the property and that kind of thing?
Yeah, I think so. I think I have an incredible right-of-way department. There's a lot of hard-working staff on the team that does a really good job of just being as forthright as they can be. We've actually got a couple of folks who have had letters of commendation from property owners come in to say, hey, thank you so much for working with me so well. And we have our hiccups here and there. We kind of trip every now and then, but we try our best to pick ourselves up and go back out there and do what we can to keep people happy to the best. And again, it's a balancing act because we're trying to meet our schedules and meet the demands of this project, but we want to be respectful of them and their needs. And I think we're doing a pretty okay job at that.
Yes. And budget-wise, we're doing okay in that regard, yes?
Yeah.
I mean, we're not done yet, but yes.
Right. Cautiously optimistic. We've reported to the board last week. We have about just under $10 million that we're forecasting to be under budget, which I'm very proud of, because this is an area of the project I think everyone was very worried would be far over budget. And we have almost all appraisals done. I think there's 2 left to go, which tells us that we know exactly how much the properties we think will cost.
Right.
And then we've got a couple of big offer letters that are about to go out that are going to kind of solidify some things. Now that's subject to negotiation with the property owners, but we're feeling reasonably confident that the budget's looking good. We have a ways to go yet, so that's why I always caution everybody's excitement. But yeah, we're showing right now that we're in good shape. So
that's good. Your department and divisions are also, or were also, and probably still always will be throughout this project, involved in archaeological inventory survey kind of thing. So early on, the courts made us complete our archaeological inventory survey end to end for the project, and I know that a lot of people all of a sudden kind of shifted gears and went into high gear to make that happen so that we could get that done in a reasonable amount of time. Tell us how that goes.
Yeah, that was a pretty heavy lift a couple of years ago particularly for my environmental staff and our teams. But again, I think in that case, in that particular instance, we just kind of had to get together and strategize getting the work done. It requires a great deal of partnership with the State Historic Preservation Division and the Oahu Island Burial Council, and we've had an incredible partnership with them, communicating every step of the way what we are doing so that they can respond in a timely manner. Nothing surprised them. There was no moment where they went, what are you doing? So I think those partnerships have really been key. We just kind of put forward a philosophy of no surprises so they know what's happening. And then also consultation with our cultural descendants has been very important in that. So again, they know what's happening, why we're doing things, and have an opportunity to provide their input on it. And it's been successful. We just recently completed treatment on our burial treatment plan was approved by SHPD and the OIBC, and then we actually went in and did our required treatments for the Iwi kupuna that was found during the AIS process. So it's all kind of come together in a really great way. And we've got a program set up for construction. So
that's what I was just going to ask. Yes,
yep.
moving into construction, how do we follow up on the work we've done already?
Yeah, we're not done by any
Right.
means. So we have an archaeological and cultural monitoring program that will go out and per the AIS that's already been done, they have some areas they're going to be particularly watching, but on call throughout construction. So if anything else is discovered, we're nimble enough to respond to it right away, and
Right.
everybody is on the same page with how that's going to happen. So
And most of that seems to be centered in the work we will do in the city center section,
Yeah.
correct? From Middle Street to the end at Ala Moana.
that's right. There's on-call provisions for the western sections and the airport section, but I think the most concern is the downtown area. And so we are actually going to have an archaeologist and a cultural monitor on site during city center construction at all times to make sure that everything is being treated the way it needs to be
Right.
in the process.
And with the knowledge we gained through the AIS process, how does that help us in the construction end of things? Or have we made adjustments based on some of the knowledge we gained through the AIS?
Right. So it's a survey. So it was intended to sort of give us an idea of what's out there. But we surveyed every column that we intend to drill, and there were some cases where we found something, and so we've adjusted the column design accordingly.
Right.
So I think that we're feeling pretty comfortable. We know what we're getting into. That's not to say we won't anticipate finding more, but I think that it was very comprehensive. And I'm sort of new to the scene with this process, so I don't dare to make any statements that it was cutting edge or what have you. But I think for our project, we feel very confident that we have a good handle of what's out there, and we're also ready to deal with anything we didn't expect, which I think is half the battle. I think it's when you don't
Yes.
think you think you're out of the woods and there's nothing there to find, and you find something and you don't know what to do. So I think this program helped us get ready for going forward to be prepared if something else, if we have any more finds.
Right. Now that's kind of like state law governed, right? The Archaeological Inventory Survey dealing with
Right.
the State Historic Preservation Division, the Oahu Island Burial Council. There's also something that we sign on to that's called a programmatic agreement.
Yes.
That's a big
Right.
kind of contractual thing with us and several other organizations. Tell us about that. I think that doesn't, a lot of people aren't aware
Right.
of it.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I think it's a for us in the environmental department, it's a big part of our work. So back during the environmental impact statement, we did a federally funded project requires you to go through the Section 106 process, which is again a federal law relating to historic preservation. And out of that, we determined there were impacts with a number of resources along the 20-mile guideway alignment, and the document that came out of it is what we call the programmatic agreement, and it sets forth all the mitigation that we will do to mitigate for any adverse effects we have on those resources. And there's the city is a signatory, the Navy, Federal Transit, SHPD, and there's I think 5 or 6 signatories to that. And then we still have consulting parties who are interested or have a stake sort of in that work that we do. And it touches a lot of different things. We're doing a lot of programs under the programmatic agreement. The AIS was actually one that was captured in there. We're going through and we're preparing nominations for historic, to be nominated to the National Historic Register, and just a wide variety of things. And I think there's some programs in there that are going to be coming up that we hope that we can engage the community on a little bit more, or at least make them aware of what's happening, because I think there's a lot of really good things in that that document. And I marvel at the teams, at my staff, that they could have looked at this like this draconian sort of heavy duty thing that they have to just execute, and a lot of us are new to the project, so we didn't create it, we just inherited it. But my staff really does a good job of looking at the opportunities that it creates for us to engage our Native Hawaiian community, our historic preservation community, engaging between Department of Planning and Permitting and the construction group, and really creating opportunities to make this big project part of the neighborhood fabric. And I really marvel that the Hart staff has embraced it in that way, because they really are trying to do things that engage in a meaningful way to have these sort of required elements do something that benefits the greater good in terms of how this project has a footprint on the Honolulu community. And I
Right.
think it's really amazing.
And can you give us an example of some impact off the top of your head that that the programmatic agreement kind of covers
Sure.
and prompts some sort of action or meeting or collaboration between Hart and other stakeholders?
Sure. So the programmatic agreement has a requirement that we create what's called the Historic Preservation Fund. And this was actually a program that creates a little pot of money. It's not very much money. I think the PA requires $2 million in total be spent to offer this as grant money to the community to do historic preservation measures. So we created a historic preservation committee, which is made up of Hart staff kind of helping to facilitate it, but also SHPD is on there, other historic preservation entities. The Historic Hawaii Foundation is on that committee. So they come together as a group to sort of create a grant program. So how are we going to give this money out, and what are the requirements folks have to meet? And at the end of it, we've gone through one phase and awarded about $1 million worth of work to several Chinatown business owners who can do things like improve the facade of their building, or they can do something that would improve some part of their building or their community, their business, and it's all geared towards sort of restoring Chinatown to some of its historic context and what have you. And we're going to be getting into next year the other half of that program and seeking requests for response to more projects to do more things. And the committee has great ideas, and it's unfortunate we only have a certain amount of money, because I think there's a lot of excitement about what could we do, but it's really neat. It really engaged small business owners in a way that I don't think they would have, and they are very, I think, surprised at, wow, okay, you're going to help me do something I need to do to make my building better. And overall, it brings Chinatown, or whatever district it's in, back to some former grandeur or what have you. And it's very exciting. So there's going to be more to come on that, definitely.
And are there regular meetings? I mean, do folks meet over programmatic agreement things with stakeholders, like on a regular or semi-regular basis?
Yes, we have a monthly meeting with our consulting parties, and the consulting party list is quite large. The meetings tend to be not so large, but people can call in and attend as they need to. And the idea is providing a venue for continued consultation, that they hear or see something that they want to ask us about or give us input on, particularly as we get into the city center construction. There's 5 stations that actually have historic resources very near them, and so how does the design fit contextually with those resources? One station we've worked very hard on with them is the Pearl Harbor station, and fitting that into the context of the historic setting of Pearl Harbor. So we have a regular monthly meeting, and lots of different topics are discussed. We invite them to bring things to us so that we have a dialogue and we can hear from them. So it's not Hart just giving them updates and things like that. It's actually engaging them and give us your feedback, tell us how we're doing.
And this agreement, like I say, is it's kind of a contractual thing. It's like, we will do these things, correct?
That's right. That's right. It's not optional. Project has to complete these things, and it has time frames and different, kind of sets the stage for how this gets executed. But it's not something we can choose to do. We must do these requirements. Now, how that execution unfolds is where the sort of rubber hits the road, right? And that's part of our monthly meetings, is consulting with all the different, interpretations of how we execute the work, and are we meeting the intent? Have we satisfied that requirement?
Yes,
so.
yes. Let me shift gears here a little bit. You also you have so many things under your kuleana.
There's a lot going on. Yeah.
It's sustainability.
Yeah.
We want to be green as green can be, and still be within budget.
Right.
Such kind of things. Tell me some of the things that we're working on in the sustainability arena?
Sure. So I think you've had Aki Marceau
Yes.
on before, and she's the land use and sustainability manager for HART. She's excellent, works very hard at and she created a sustainability program for HART, and she works really hard at keeping our contractors kind of honest in what they're doing in the field to recycle materials and what have you, and we have requirements of them for that. But she's also we're very trying to think of what's going to come next, and one of the big things we always hear is photovoltaics or
Yes.
renewable energies. And so we are in the process of working up, getting something in place to put photovoltaics at the Rail Operations Center. And that's really exciting because next year it's going to be coming to
Yes.
substantial completion, and now we can maybe take it and do something in terms of PV. We're looking for other opportunities for photovoltaics on other parts of the system, whether it's stations or our park and rides. So that's sort of scratching the surface of the sustainability program, and we're kind of very busy group. So it's always about sort of prioritizing how we can kind of get these good success stories under our belt. And I think the PV program is really on the cusp of moving into actual implementation, and we're going to be able to show that we've done something that kind of gives back in terms of green development. So, I hope soon we're going to present to the HART board some of our sustainability initiatives, and actually ask the board to sign a sustainability policy and endorse kind of from their level, at the policy level, that they'd like to see the organization do things. Aki does all kinds of neat little things internally. We have a Mindful Monday where she's sending us really cute little pieces of information just to keep the staff mindful,
Yes.
Walk instead of drive.
Bike when you can.
Bike when you can.
Yeah.
She gets after us about styrofoam in the office. Use your own utensils and your own cups. So, I mean, but it's funny because it creates a foundation of culture
Yes.
that's got that kind of in the mindset, and then
Yes.
it helps us go out and actually put that into the program's physical elements.
Right.
Yeah.
And in addition to photovoltaics, which I think a lot of people want us to incorporate in the design
Right.
and function of our rail system, rail transit as a whole is it's like electric cars, right? So
Yeah.
I mean
Right.
it's green.
Right, and I think, it gives people the choice. I think there's always this debate about how many cars does it take off the road, and the reduction in vehicle miles traveled and all those statistics. But at the end of the day, at least for me as a planner, I came from Salt Lake City. We didn't have the traffic we even have here in Honolulu.
Sure.
But what we always used to remind folks is, in 20, 30, 40 years, the population is growing and our resources get more limited, and this just offers us sort of making way for the future, and gives all of us a choice in how we move and work and play. And if the H1 is just jammed, you got the option to jump on the train, and I think of sustainability in different ways too, that it might just mean personal sustainability, that I can sit on the train and I can read and I can nap and I'm not
Yes.
stressed out sitting in my car, right?
Yes.
So I think it takes on a very wide meaning, and I think that we will have a positive impact on a lot of different levels for people's health and work-life balance.
Right.
Yeah.
We've only got about a minute left, and the time has really flown,
flies.
as it usually does. But I'm just wondering if there's kind of a parting thought that you'd like to leave with our audience about your work and your division, because like I say, I think everybody sees the construction, hears
Yeah.
about the construction, hears about our budget, hears about our rail cars even a little bit, but not many people are familiar with planning and right of way.
Right. Well, I think for planning, we're doing our job well if you don't hear about us, because if you hear about us, it means something got tripped up in the process,
Yes.
and there's a permit we didn't get. I think so. For me, it's a victory if we do kind of keep under the radar, because I think that means things are going well. And for the right-of-way department, we're just going to keep plugging away at working through what we need to support the project. There's a great, hard-working group of people in the Planning and Right-of-Way Division, so I'm very proud to be part of that group, and we're just going to try our best to keep doing what we're doing. We'll trip, we'll fall, but
Yes.
we're going to just, make partnerships and do what we can to keep ahead of the troops. So
Thanks so much, Liz. Thanks for being with us today.
my
really
pleasure.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
That's all the time we have for today. On behalf of all of us on the project team, mahalo for joining us today, and we'll see you again next time for another edition of Honolulu on the Move.
If you have a question you'd like us to answer on our next Honolulu on the Move show, go ahead and hit us up on Twitter or Facebook, just two of the places where you can stay informed with up-to-date information on the Honolulu Rail Transit Project. And you can view our latest project videos on our YouTube channel. If you'd like more information on the project, or would like a presentation to your group or organization, give us a call at our project hotline at 566-2299 or contact us via our website at honolulutransit.org. You'll be able to keep up with the latest news and information about the project, important meeting dates, times, and locations, and examine the official documents that are guiding the project's planning and construction. Take some time to visit honolulutransit.org.